Okay guys, so our lesson for right now is going to be adding decimals. And as you can see up here in the blue, I have always lined up the decimal point. And really when you guys are adding up decimals or subtracting decimals, that's really the most important thing that you guys can remember. Those decimal points always need to be lined up. So I have an example here of 2 and 84 hundredths plus 4 and 35 hundredths. And our dreaded estimate is back. So we are always going to make an estimate when we are adding decimals because I want to make sure that when we add them, we're actually somewhere close to our to the decimal answer that we get. So if I look at 2 and 84 hundredths, and I think in my head what whole number that's closest to. 2 and 84 hundredths is going to be closest to 3. So I'm going to round that to 3. And then 4 and 35 hundredths, that's going to be closest to 4. So my estimate is going to be simple. 3 plus 4 equals 7. So when I add 2 and 84 hundredths and 4 and 35 hundredths, I want to get an answer that's close to 7. So like I said, lining up the decimal points is the most important thing. And this one is actually lines up pretty well and it's pretty easy. So when I write these vertically instead of horizontally, that's what they're going to look like. And I've actually lined up my decimals. My numbers are all nice and even. I've got ones, I've got tenths, I've got hundredths. So then just like when you add a normal problem, you always start at the right. So I've got 4 plus 5 equals 9. And 8 plus 3 equals 11. You write down your 1, you carry your second one, just like you would do when you're normally doing an addition problem. That decimal point is going to fall into the answer. It just falls straight down. And then we can add our ones column, and we've got 4 plus 2 is 6, plus our 1 is 7. So for a final answer, we get 7 and 19 hundredths. And we need to go back and check that with our estimate. Our estimate is 7. So 7 and 19 hundredths is close enough to 7 that we could say that our answer and our estimate are both reasonable. Okay, so for our second example today, we have 2 and 965 thousandths plus 7 and 47 hundredths. And just like in the first problem, we're going to do an estimate for this one. So 2 and 965 thousandths. That's going to round to 3, and 7 and 47 hundredths is going to round to 7. So my estimate for this one is 10. So just like in the last problem, I want to always make sure that I'm lining up my decimal points. And if you notice that this one here goes out to the thousandths place, and this one here goes out to the hundredths place. So a quick little way to make sure that we are getting all of our numbers lined up correctly, our digits lined up in the correct place value. I've made this chart down here, and I've got my ones, my tenths, my hundredths, and my thousandths. So I've got my 2 and my 7 that are in my one spots. So I'm going to start with a 2 and a 7 in my one spots. And in my tenth spots, I've got a 9 and a 4. So I've got my 9 and my 4. In my hundredth spots, then, I've got a 6 and I've got a 7. So those are going to be my numbers in my hundredths column. And then in my thousandths column here, I've got a 5. And I don't have anything in the hundredths column in my second number. So in order to keep that place, I can put a 0 in that column. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my decimal points in both of those. And we're adding them together. So now that I'm sure I have all my place values lined up, I can just go ahead and add. 5 plus 0 is 5. 6 plus 7 is 13. I've got 9 plus 1 plus 4 is 14. And then I've got 7 plus 2 plus 1, which is 10. My decimal falls down there. So I've got 10 and 435 thousandths. And if I check that against my estimate of 10, I'm pretty close. So both my estimate and my answer are reasonable. So now that I've done 2 examples for you guys, I want you guys to go to the next slide. And I want you guys to download the PDF that I put in there. And then we're going to follow along. You guys can follow along on that PDF with the next several examples that I do.